Setting up your sewing space can be a daunting task, but first you're going to want to take stock in how you're going to use that space. Ask yourself these questions. What tools will I need to have easy access to? What space do I have available to use? And how am I going to store my fabric? Let's pop into the crafting castle for a tour. I'll show you how I utilize my space and why. And if you stick around, I'll probably tell you what mistakes I made and how I fixed my poor planning.
My crafting castle is a 10 by 10 space with a closet, a door, a window, and a diagonal corner. This did limit my options, but I did make sure to include lots of storage and organizational space, as well as a large table to work on.
The first mistake I made when I moved into the crafting castle was not having somewhere to throw away my scraps and pieces of paper. I immediately corrected that by getting myself a nice big trash can, because who wants to walk out to the kitchen every time to throw something away, because that just slows down the process. There's also a recycling box for those paper scraps that I can just throw in the recycling bin real quick. The other thing you want to have is a scrap catcher, because scraps are going to fall all over the place. So even if you have a little room, have a scrap catcher to keep underneath your sewing machine or your serger.
It was important for me to be able to have both Starbuck, my Singer sewing machine, and Stitch, my brother's serger, sitting side by side, so that I wouldn't need to move around a bunch during a single project. It's all about being efficient. My next request was a TV across from me so I can multitask. This is why my machines are not along the wall. Okay, getting back to practicality, the Scatus pegboard from IKEA has some fantastic options for storage of small items. I keep all the things that I need to have handy, like my scissors, seam rippers, additional machine feet, cleaning tools, machine oil, all those things I use frequently. Below that, in the drawers, I keep the most frequently used thread and miscellaneous tools that are used slightly less often. And of course, hidden at the bottom are the UFO baskets. I'm not a fan of hemming or repairs, so that's mostly what you'll find down there. Since I am the literary sewist, I was insistent on having the perfect corner bookshelf for all of my best looking books. See anything there that you've read or want to read? Topping off my bookshelf is my vintage Singer 221 that I inherited from my stepmother who didn't sew, but her mother did. She needs some TLC, but I love her just the same.
When I first moved into this space, the desk that I had available for my sewing table was this fish-shaped desk. It had a little tail section and a round curved part. It was great for the sewing machine and serger to switch back and forth, but there was no cutting space. So I needed an extra table, but the room was so small I had a hard time figuring it out. So I crafted a desk and asked my dad and stepdad, my mom even got involved with the painting and the design of the hinge, to create this fantastic table. Hold on, if it pops open, there we go. It pops open and stands on its own, giving me this whole big space to be able to cut fabric out on.
For those who'd like to see how it works, the legs have these releasing hinges that stay locked in place when collapsed. The hinge along the table seam is a full-length piano hinge, which provides ample support while putting the table up and down. The end of the table is about 2 inches away from the shelf, so there aren't any scratches. Things that just make sense. Cable management. You hear about it for computers, but with all the tech that goes into sewing these days, keeping cables neat and out of the way is key. Everything is plugged into a smart outlet so I can control them from the Echo Dot. I also store my extra fabrics under here because I never know when I'm going to need something out of the ordinary. Fabric storage of any kind is super important. When designing this space, I really wanted to put all the fabric out there on display. I mean, who doesn't want a whole wall of fabric? Just ignore the messy rows of scraps at the bottom. I may need them one day. The wall of fabric includes 4 drawers where I store various notions like buttons, zippers, elastics, and ribbons. Easy access to color match with all my various projects. The second set of calyx shelves you'll find in my crafting castle belong to the random crafting supplies that I have. Some date back to my old Etsy shop where I made custom party decor, while others get used intermittently with some of my videos and some projects that I have set aside for upcoming videos. Finishing off my list of extras that just make sense, you'll find my laptop, which is connected through these wasteways up to the ceiling where the projector is mounted. Nothing is more frustrating than having to take the time to tape a PDF pattern together, so I knew when sewists began shifting to using projectors to lay out and cut their patterns, I was totally in. If you're someone who sews a ton, I strongly recommend looking into this option. You'll never go back. I don't want to go into the how-to of it all today, that can be another video, but I'll drop some links in the comments for the resources to help you get started on this paper and time-saving journey. Once you step into the crafting castle, you will quickly see what makes me, well, me. I'm very much a nerdy fangirl who loves to collect things here and there to show off her fandom love. After all, that's part of the inspiration for this channel, right? You may not always get to see it in my videos, but now you'll know it's there just off camera. And speaking of cameras, that leads us to the biggest mistake of all. Okay, it's not really a mistake, but it wasn't something I had planned when I set this room up. Filming in this tiny space, lighting takes up way more space than I had anticipated, which caused me to move shelves around and add more to compensate. The blanket behind the door helps with the sound buffering. Decorated with the wall quilt that my G-Mom made me, it really does need a better place of honor. And then there's the hooks above the closet that serve the purpose of hanging another blanket that also helps dampen the sound in the room while filming. So you may have noticed that one side of the room is filled with all of my random me things, while the other side of the room is neat and clean and Literary Sewist branded. That's because I film on the one side of the room, so if you plan on filming in your sewing space, think about how that space will look to your audience. This may not be a challenge for most of you, but it was definitely something I hadn't initially thought about in the planning process.
No matter what space you have available to work with, there is a solution for you. Before I had a whole room to work with, I had everything set up on my dining room table, and at the end of the day, I would have to put it away neat and tidy so it was out of the way and we could use the table again. Was it easy? Not at all, but it worked. So if you have any questions about my setup here, or you want suggestions for your own, just drop them in the comments. I'd be happy to chit chat with you about it and see what we can find out. In the meantime, why not mosey on over there for more sewing project inspiration, and I'll see you in the next one.
Before you hop away, drop down to the video description to sign up for my newsletter and receive this frog coin pouch pattern for free.